Hello. Hello. I am just giving introduction of Shakti Kumar ji. Shakti Kumar ji born in Delhi and completed Bachelor's of Arts from Dayal Singh Evening College, Delhi. Bachelor of Education from KLDAV College, Roorkee. He taught Sanskrit and English in school and taught Hindi to non-Hindi speaking adults. He first listened JK at the Constitution Club, New Delhi, later in Mumbai, JJ School of Arts. He is assisting in editing Hindi translation of K's book to Vijay Chhabra ji, editor of KFI Strai Mantri Hindi Bulletin, Krishnamurti Parisavvad. Shakti ji, please unmute and start speaking. Shakti ji, please unmute.
Yes, sir. You see, this 11th September is a very sad day for humanity. And we lost many lives on this day, and later on, many more lives in Afghanistan and elsewhere. So that sadness includes that what sort of tyranny of thought we live in, and what is the significance of Krishnamurti's message in this world full of turmoil. Today, I will be sharing with you some aspects of Krishnamurti's discourse. I have labeled them theoretical because for me they are like hypotheses. My experimentation with them is somewhat not very solid, very incomplete, hence the usage of word theoretical. But these aspects, they have attracted me, and invited me to test them out as much as I can. And if I am unable to test them out, to experiment with them, at least to notice the difficulties that come in the way of, this understanding in an existential way. Because to understand intellectually is just, as in Hindi we say, the stage of manan or vimarsh. And from that state, I'm presenting certain things. Most of these, there will be quotes, and I don't have the PowerPoint facility here. So what I'm going to do is that I will be reading those quotes, and at the same time, I am copy pasting those quotes which I am reading to the chat box. So if you wish, you can see the chat box simultaneously or whatever, because usually if someone is reading quotes of Krishnamurti or anybody, it's becomes a little bit monotonous in somebody's voice. Yeah. But if one is reading it together, then it becomes easier. So the first thing which is, it's like a somebody is telling me that this simple thing, can you do or not? Is it possible or not of watching the outer world? And when we read Krishnamurti, and they say in the notebook and elsewhere also, when he's describing a walk, he's looking at so many things, watching, not concentrating, but not missing anything. So the first quote I'm reading from Krishnamurti's notebook, and I'm also copy pasting it on the chat box. The road was muddy, deep rutted, full of people. It was outside the town and slowly a suburb was being built. But now it was incredibly dirty, full of holes, dogs, goats, wandering cattle, buses, cycles, cars, and more people. Shops were selling colored drinks in bottles, shops that had clothes to sell, food, wood for fire, a bank, a cycle repair shop, more food, goats, and more people. There was a still country on either side of the road, palm trees, rice fields, and great puddles of water. The sun was among the clouds behind the palm trees, bursting with color and vast shadows. The pools were ablaze, and every bush and tree was amazed by the vastness of the sky. The goats were nibbling at their roots. Women were washing their clothes at a tap. Children went on playing. Everywhere there was activity, and nobody bothered to look at the sky or at those clouds bearing color. It was an evening that would soon disappear, never to appear again, and nobody seems to care. So when I was reading it, one cannot notice all these things if one is walking around a place anywhere full of thoughts. Thinking, as I see myself usually, is that suddenly I remember crossing, the bazaar, and there, then I am again myself, and then there is disappearance, in the clouds of thought. So it was amazing for me that from the outer world to take so much in. And in the same context, the next quotation from Krishna ji is from Zanen. And this is I'm sorry, the first quote I didn't click, so that didn't appear there. So in this, he's inviting us for something. I wonder if you have ever walked along a crowded street or a lonely road and just looked at things without thought. There is a state of observation without the interference of thought. Though you are aware of everything about you and you recognize the person, the mountain, the tree, or the oncoming car, yet the mind is not functioning in the usual pattern of thought. I don't know if this has ever happened to you. Do try it sometimes when you are driving or walking. Just look without thought. Observe without the reaction which breeds thought. Though you recognize color and form, though you see the stream, the car, the goat, the bus, there is no reaction, but merely negative observation. And in that very state of so-called negative observation is action. So again, reading this, many questions they come in the mind. Maybe I said to myself that maybe my brain is like a computer in which something or other is coming all the time. So it is only selectively that we watch and listen to things. So it is difficult to say whether this chattering of the mind, which blocks our connection with the outside world, blocks our observation. I said, is it innate or is it an acquired habit? And Professor Krishna once, he told that Krishna ji, in some conversation with him, he said that nothing is innate. So, but one has to be skeptical and open at the same time. Because if in our daily life, is it possible or not? Or it is the habit of non-watching is so strong, habit of inattention is so strong that we miss a lot in life. And obviously this anybody can see that awareness cannot be made into a habit. One habit against the habit of unawareness, one has to pick it up as one goes along. So the next quotation is from the book Truth and Actuality. This is a very affectionate invitation of watching around, It is Krishna ji says, I realize images are made when the mind is not giving its attention at the moment. At the moment, something is said that gives pleasure or something that brings about displeasure. To be aware at that moment, not afterwards. But we become aware afterwards and say, my God, I must pay attention. Terrible. I see it is important to be attentive and I don't know how to be attentive. I lose it. And when the thing takes place, it is so quick and I say to myself, I must be attentive. So I beat myself into being attentive. I wonder if you see this. And therefore, I am never attentive. So I say to myself, I am not attentive at the moment something is said which gives pleasure or pain. I see that I am inattentive. I have found that my whole mind makeup is inattentive to the birds, to nature, to everything. I am inattentive. When I walk, when I eat, when I speak, I am inattentive. So I say to myself, I'm not going to be concerned with attention, but inattention. Do you get this? I am not going to be concerned with being attentive, but I am going to see what is inattention. I am watching inattention and I see I am inattentive most of the time. So I'm going to pay attention to one thing at a time. That is, when I walk, when I eat, I'm going to walk, eat with attention. I'm not going to think about something else, but I'm going to pay attention to every little thing. So what has been inattention becomes attention. I wonder if you see that. So I am now watching inattention. That is, I am watching that I am not attentive. I look at a bird and never look at it. My thoughts are all over the place. I am now going to look at that bird. It may take me a second, but I am going to look at it. When I walk, I am going to watch it. So that out of inattention, without any effort, there is total attention. When there is total attention, then when you say something pleasant or unpleasant, there is no image forming because I am totally there. My whole mind, heart, brain, all the responses are completely awake and attentive. Aren't you very attentive when you are pursuing pleasure? You don't have to talk about attention. You want that pleasure. Sexually, when you want it, you are tremendously attentive. Attention implies a mind that is completely awake, which means it doesn't demand challenge. It is only when we have images that challenges come. I wonder if you see this. Because of those images, challenges come and you respond to the challenges inadequately. Therefore, there is a constant battle between challenge and response, which means the increase of images. And the more it increases, the more challenges come. And so there is always the strengthening of images. I wonder if you see this. Haven't you noticed people when they are challenged about their Catholicism or whatever it is, how they become more strong in their opinions? So by being completely attentive, there is no image formation, which means conditioning disappears. So this, how important it is to watch a bird, to watch a flower, to watch within, and to watch without. Usually, in most of the traditions, as far as I know, tremendous importance is being given to watching within. Krishnamurti at one place says that within and without are not different. What happens if one is only watching within, watching thoughts, watching fear, but not watching the outside world, immersed in the inner scape? Then what happens? So here is the next quotation. It's a dialogue of Krishnamurti with teachers from the book on education, a part of that. So it is, but it seems that the whole thing is not being pasted on this chat box. So I'm very sorry. I didn't know this technical glitch. So I'll be reading this. Krishnamurti is telling this to teacher. And though this is happening in a school, but as once Professor Krishna in these online dialogues, he said that you are the teacher and you are the school. And Krishnamurti has also indicated that one teacher within and a student within. So in that spirit, if we can hear it. Krishnamurti, you have helped the student to look at himself. You have helped him to be aware of this fear and to turn inward in the sense that he feels more conscious of the fear. You have to balance it by something else. Teacher, do you mean, sir, that this process of internal introspection is likely to lead to some complications in the child? Krishnamurti, it is bound to lead to a kind of self-conscious feeling. Am I doing the right thing or the wrong thing? There would be nervousness or self-importance or the showing off in how fearless I am. How will you balance that? Think it out. Use your mind very carefully. At this stage, I think the problem again requires a different kind of approach. Otherwise, you will be helping the child by concentrated attention to become self-conscious, self-assertive, arrogant, and with an authoritarian outlook. Teacher, there should be an opportunity for the child to be sensitive to other things which are not within. Krishnamurti, it appears to me you will unconsciously strengthen egotism, a sense of self-importance, a sense of being offensive, aggressive, rude. You have so far dealt with the movement of the mind. The tide is moving in, the tide also moves out. But if it remains inward, it is like the backwaters of a bay. But if the tide has a movement inward, then it has to have an outward movement. You have dealt so far only with an inward movement. How will you help the student to move out? That is, how will I help myself to move out? So this watching the world around me, this was something, one aspect which attracted me. If it can be tested out in daily life. Next thing, this question of taking stock. That was something very new because, I have read somewhat the traditional literature, not the Buddhism literature, but the Upanishads, like a layman, and I read them like a fiction like this. But nowhere I find this aspect. So I'm reading a quote from Public Discussion 6, Zanen, Switzerland, 7th August, 1970. Doesn't it happen to you when you go to bed that you take stock of what you have done during the day? Don't you take stock? Or you just flop into bed and go to sleep? Don't you review the day? Say, look, this should have been done. This should not have been done. You are taking stock. And which means what? Follow this very carefully. Which means what? You are bringing order, right? And the brain demands order because otherwise it can't function. So this taking stock was something very new, and I saw that it is possible, and it really helps, but it is not possible if I am attached to my certain tendencies, certain pleasures, which become block in watching. And connected with this, there is something from Krishnamurti's letter to Nandini Mehta. It was in the book Walking with Krishnamurti by Devyani Mangaldas. That has been very helpful. Krishnamurti writes to her, you ought to spend some time by yourself, not to rest or go to sleep, but to take stock, not to be overwhelmed by the family and circumstances, to empty the mind of all its contents, memories, pleasures, etc., to start anew and to be completely still and empty. Do this, my dear. Do it and don't just think about doing it. Do it as naturally and simply as you brush your teeth and take a bath. The next thing is paying attention to action. And there was one online meeting, and Dr. Kumar Swami in these online meetings, one of these, and he said something which really stayed with me. He said, when you are doing something, say I am sweeping the floor, and I'm thinking of the next function, I don't do that completely. So what I am doing at this moment becomes just a passage. So in this connection, there is another quote of Krishnamurti. Sir, this is theoretical. I have nothing else but quotes. But they invite me, they help me, and so I think that I can share. So it is public talk in New York, 28th March, 1982. Meditation is total attention to whatever you are doing throughout the day. If you are putting on your tie, attend to it. If you are talking to somebody, pay complete attention. And then there is another one, which is from Zanin, 9th public talk, 28 July 1966. Here Krishna ji is relating completely to our daily life. Most of the time he is relating completely to our daily life. So he says here, when you are eating, eat. When you are going for a walk, walk. Don't say, I must be doing something else. When you are reading, give your attention completely to that, whether it is a detective novel, a magazine, the Bible, or what you will. The complete attention is a complete action, and therefore there is no, I must be doing something else. It is only when we are inattentive that we have the feeling of, by Jove, I must be doing something better. But if we give complete attention when we are eating, that is action. What is important is not what we are doing, but whether we can give total attention. I mean by that word, not something we learn through concentration in a school or in business, but to attend with our bodies, our nerves, our eyes, our ears, our minds, our hearts completely. If we do that, there is a tremendous crisis in our lives. Then something demands our whole energy, vitality, attention. Life demands that attention every minute, but we are so trained to inattention that we are always trying to escape from attention to inattention. We say, how am I to attend? I am lazy. Be lazy, but be totally attentive to the laziness. Be totally attentive to inattention. Know that you are completely inattentive. Then when you know that you are totally attentive to inattention, you are attentive. Another thing which comes in the way, and this is also something very new approach. People have talked about pleasure. It becomes a discipline, becomes an agony. But Krishna ji sees it in a very, very different way. This is part of a documentary, Problems of Living, 1974, this quotation. And here he says, he's not giving lecture in this, this short film, but he's speaking in front of camera. Nobody else is there. Or he's wandering, he's going here and there in the, lawn and smelling flowers. So he says here, we can cultivate pleasure. You can pursue it. You can subtly, consciously or unconsciously maintain this pursuit. But pleasure is entirely different from joy. You cannot invite joy. You may experience a period of joy and cultivate the memory of that experience and turn it into pleasure, and it is no longer joy. Joy cannot be invited as you can invite pleasure. And so the memory of joy remains, and the cultivation of that memory gradually becomes pleasure and prevents joy coming in. So one has to be very much aware of these two, that joy cannot possibly be invited at any time, consciously or unconsciously. But pleasure in different forms can be pursued, sustained, and nourished. So when this is very clear, the difference of the two, then joy becomes a natural event. And it happens quite often when the whole principle of pleasure is understood. You see, when I was listening to this and I looked at my life, it was, and it is diametrically opposite, He's talking about that joy happens quite often when the whole principle of pleasure is understood. I don't know that. But when the principle of pleasure is not understood, what happens? That I know. That then the disturbance, the feeling of uneasiness becomes a natural event. And then we try to escape from it. And Krishna ji is so full of affection, so compassionate, as if he knows the problems that people face. So he takes this question of escape in a very different ways. This is from the book Questioning Krishnamurti, a conversation with Father Eugene Charlotte. Krishna says, my son, my brother, my wife dies. What takes place generally is that I escape from it. Because I can't face this sense of tremendous danger, loneliness, and despair, I escape from it into ideology, concepts in a dozen ways. Now, to perceive the escape, just to perceive it, not check it or control it, not say I mustn't, just to be aware choicelessly again that you are escaping. Then the escape stops. And it's so strange that it happens if there is really watching, the escape does stop. But I see in my life that the attachment with the escapes is so strong that I would rather wish to drop the awareness to go in that whirlwind of that escape. So that is a great challenge, a great invitation. At the end of it, I'm reading a quotation which is, in old traditions, it is like a guided meditation. It is from the book Thinks on These Things, chapter 4. With this, I will stop speaking and then we can discuss and I will listen. I wish I could listen in the way that Krishna ji is talking in this quotation. Have you ever sat very silently, not with your attention fixed on anything, not making an effort to concentrate, but with the mind very quiet, really still? Then you hear everything, don't you? You hear the far off noises as well as those that are nearer and those that are very close by. The immediate sounds, which means really that you are listening to everything. Your mind is not confined to one narrow little channel. If you can listen in this way, listen with ease, without strain, you will find an extraordinary change taking place within you. A change which comes without your volition, without your asking. And in that change, there is great beauty and depth of insight. So friends, these were certain aspects which I wish to share. They are inviting me and they are just, for me, they are theoretical, but many among us must have gone much deeper in these things. And now I will stop. Only two things I would like to say more. One is that, you see, sirs, when you comment, please don't appreciate what has been talked. Because I have not talked anything. I have just read the quotations. It was like I have invited you in my study room and we were reading it together. The second thing, if there is any question, then please allow me to answer it in Hindi, because I am from a Hindi medium school background and all that, and English is not very natural to me. But in case the questioner wishes it that I should ask it, I should answer it in English, then I would do that. Sometimes I need to find out words and all that things. So thank you very much, sir. Thanks for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shakti ji.
Thank you.
May I request Professor Krishna to say something? Professor Krishna.
Well, Shakti ji has chosen passages that relate to paying attention holistically, both inside and outside, and what blocks that possibility within us. And he has presented this as a challenge because Krishna said, if we can do this, then we have a learning mind, and the learning mind can go very far. A learning that is not born of thinking. So it's a different kind of learning than what we have been trained to do in school, college, and education. It's a very deep challenge. And Shakti ji has pointed out that in spite of his best efforts to try to do this, he has found that the addiction to thought, to images, to pleasure is so strong, almost like an instinct. In fact, it is an instinct, because even in the animal, the instinct is there of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. And we have got that through evolution within us. That is why I went to Krishnaji and asked him, sir, isn't that innate, because it's part of biological instinct? It is in response to that he said, nothing is innate. That means if you are serious enough, you can go beyond instinct. You don't have to be trapped in this because animals are trapped in it. That was, of course, his experience. So it's a very big challenge. Ultimate challenge of liberation is the same, because liberation is freedom from conditioning, is freedom from the self, is freedom from thinking, freedom from images, and all that he's pointing out is the result of paying total attention. The Dalai Lama also talks about mindfulness. I have not studied Buddhism, so I don't know whether he means the same thing, but it is very likely, because the Buddha must have talked about it. And it says that when you are eating, pay attention and be aware that you are eating. When you are walking, be aware that you are walking. That means pay attention. Now, there is a difference between attention and concentration. Concentration requires an effort of will. Attention is something that comes naturally when you are interested in something. When you are interested in something, it is spontaneous. You don't have to force yourself. As he says, for example, that when you are seeking pleasure, you pay attention because you're jolly well interested in what is happening. But he's saying not only when it gives pleasure, but at all times, can you pay attention so that you perceive the beauty and the joy of life. Now that requires sensitivity. And all this knowledge process, which we go through in college and school, destroys sensitivity. That's why he wanted to change education so that awakening sensitivity, this is a different kind of intelligence, is absolutely essential for what he was talking about. Because unless you are sensitive to nature, to the beauty of nature, to a river, to an animal, you won't watch. So you don't pay attention because you are not sensitive. And you are not sensitive because you have cultivated this whole process of thinking and looking for reward and punishment and achieving results. So it's a big change in direction. He said, it's a totally different way of living, totally different way of living, not some slight change here and there. Because then you are approaching life completely differently, not seeking more and more of pleasure and less of pain. There is no seeking when you are paying full attention to everything around, which is also choiceless awareness. These are different words, but they amount to the same thing. Because the choice comes because you give importance to something and the other thing is less important. Because in one, your self-interest lies, in the other, your self-interest does not lie. And that promotes the self. So freedom from the self, freedom from conditioning, paying total attention, it's all one and the same thing. It's going beyond this state of thought-created images, efforts, and so on. Thank you. I'll end it here.
Thank you. Chhabra sir, would you please say something? Chhabra sir.
Yeah, now I was not able to unmute. Yeah. I was, this emphasis on theoretical, Shakti we have been long associated. We often have these discussions. I'm reminded of one remark made by a friend at Shantiniketan retreat. He said, somebody told Krishnaji, I don't want to talk about all this. This is going to be second-hand. So he said, can you do it? Yes. Can you do this second-hand in a first-hand way? So, so I was reminded of this, that the way it came out, the way it came, and you will listen to it, whatever Shakti was stating, whether quoting or saying, but everything was flowing in a way that I was somehow reminded of this, that this is it really theoretical or existential? And in fact, it's interesting if you look at the very word theoretical or theory, the original meaning seems to be observation or way of observing, as David Bohm once brought out. So the word theory also has in it the opposite of it, observing. And, so it's these divisions, when one is engaging with this kind of live wire that Krishnaji sends out, I don't know how far one can really remain theoretical, and it doesn't mean the opposite also, that it just gets, melts and, there's a claim to transformation. So, but there is this, I think this engaging with the opposites also comes out throughout in various forms, whether, action, when Shakti ji mentioned about action, and there's when you observe without reacting, and that's action. So how do we see it? When is it? Is it uh, that we all the time react, or uh, there are moments when mind is not interested in reacting. What happens then? Uh, and also when we mentioned about inner and outer, is it really opposite, or it is a flow, as he says, tied in and tied out? Is it whether inner or outer? The point is the observation happening or image being formed? So it's not so much inner and outer, but whether image is being formed or there is a intimacy, there's a contact with what is within and without. Whether or not that's happening, is there awareness of that? And expressions, Shakti ji brought out, is talking of testing it out, taking a stock. That is very practical, actually. if the mind is demanding, it's testing it out. So either it works or it doesn't. Either it is there or it's not there. Either there is an understanding or it's not there. So there's all the time this bubbling of questioning, which is not necessarily looking for an answer, which is just questioning and looking. Is it either it's functioning or it's not functioning? Either it's true or it's not true, and the mind is looking at it. Is that what is happening? Or one is sliding into some framework or taking stock after the event? Because taking stock is, all these words are, that's why word is not the thing. Words are necessarily have that binary framework. But whenever you explore any word, it seems that binary thing gets hazy. And one wonders, where is that boundary? Because there's a movement there. And when it is that movement, when there's a sense of that, that inner movement gravitating more towards one pole, you call it that. And when it is gravitating more towards another pole, you call it that. But actuality seems to be more in this movement. But the moment you have to use language, there's there is that need also to use words, and you express this in that, and maybe for emphasis also. But the actuality seems to be always in movement and not really stuck on this bank or that bank. That's yeah. It seems existential to me. But when you capture in words, it's maybe it's safer in some way to say this is, well, as far as I am concerned, I see it as more, it's still a concept perhaps. Yes, it's good to doubt and allow the reality to reveal itself. Either it is so or it is not so. Thank you.
Hareshwar Singh. Please unmute.
Okay, namaskar. I would just like to add something to what Professor Krishna said. When Krishna was asked about our old ways of the mind, whether it is pleasure seeking or conditioning, image formation, is that innate? And he said that attention cannot be practiced, or it is not concentration. It will happen if you are interested. Now, the problem is that the word interested, we use most of the time, and usually it also seems to be, not exactly, but seems to be pertaining to the realm of desire and likes and dislikes and things like that. So I would just like to add something, and I hope that Professor Krishna finds that I'm not contradicting him. I would say, if you see its significance, if we see the significance of being attentive, which means what? Being in the present, active present, whatever is happening inside or outside. If we see its significance, then probably this attention will go on deepening day by day, over the weeks, over the months. Otherwise, personally, I have tried some techniques, and I have discovered that no doubt through concentration, mind can be stilled, thoughts can be silenced, which means thoughts can be pushed into abeyance. But pushing thoughts into abeyance and understanding the total structure of thought, because of my greed, my ambition, my feeling jealous of someone who is holding a very higher position, the understanding that structure is important. Because if I am in that state of observing and being attentive towards my inattention, then that ambition, jealousy, or whatever, that structure is understood. And as Krishna has said, and the transformation, the change is simultaneous. So while we tread the path of whatever, I don't know whether it's a loaded word, if we can use the path of, quest or spirituality, the change is happening moment to moment. There is no need to measure how far I have reached and how much more to go. It's a mind game. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Durga Rani. Durga Rani, please unmute.
Namaskar, Shakti ji, and good morning to everybody. Yeah. Sir, Shakti sir, you said that, no appreciation, but you said what you felt like, and we follow what comes naturally to us, and what is our second nature. Like my previous speakers, very nicely, they brought out the summary of what you have stated. And like, especially Vijay ji has got such a smiling disposition about him. I feel that seriousness goes a long way when you are, maybe lighthearted, when you take things in a more joyful way, sir. That's my understanding. So though you told us not to appreciate, but I really I have a lot of appreciation for all the beautiful texts, especially. It's a beautiful assortment of nice texts you have brought. In fact, you wonder, Krishna ji has stated such a beautiful, extremely deep, beautiful text. And you feel, what is there to be for us to speak about, That is, the texts are so intimidating also in some nature. So apart from that, sir, I have to say, the text which we pick up, maybe that speaks of what we are. And actually, like Professor Krishna has rightly stated, it speaks of the learning mind. Only when we are learning, when we are interested, when we are finding out, that speaks of what kind of text we pick up. And you also brought from text from various sources, not from for me also, though that commentaries of living and beginning of learning, all these areas, I find, Krishna ji imparting very valuable lessons where existential matters are concerned. If you want to have a discussion, those discussions sound very vague to me, and when you read his biographies, his direct contact with people, and when he speaks, in an indirect way, not when he is in the serious discussions, all those areas, they look as if they are very valuable lessons he is imparting. He's an extraordinary teacher, and definitely the way he used to talk to people, his affection, his compassion, everything is a lesson for us, if you want to pick up. That's what I have to say. And apart from that, the points that you picked up, Shakti ji, like, that being skeptical and being open. I think nothing can beat that. That's what the ultimate, the pointer Krishna ji is giving to us. Never at any point of time take things for granted. You have to be skeptical. You have to be open also, because life and the existence is so endless, so vast. Anytime, if you have taken for granted, if you stop doing that, means we are dead that very moment. Our inquiry has come to an end. So that is a very valuable thing that has to be, maybe that has to be ingrained in us. That's one thing I would like to say. And the observation, watching inside and outside, I think that is a very special lesson we find in Krishnaji's teachings. Nowhere, none of the teachers put so much of emphasis on the nature, on the world around, in all the spiritual texts. They only say something about, how one has to do this, one has to do that. But Krishnaji doesn't give any of those things. He says, just observe. And when we ask this question, why he is emphasizing so much on observation, we realize that, otherwise we are all the time pretty absorbed in our own lives, our own problems, our children, our job, our day-to-day relationships. We get so absorbed in them, and we stop bothering about other people, other things all around us. Whereas life is not, existence is not about only us, not only about, maybe there's a valuable lesson from the beginning. He is emphasized on the nature and the observation. So that's a very valuable thing you have brought out. And taking the stock. So sometimes we wonder, has he asking us to be completely erase our memory? So taking stock is a very valuable point you brought to our attention today. And that shows Krishnaji is not asking us to erase our memory completely. Taking a stock and looking at our own behavior that very day. Have I been insensitive? Have I been very angry? Have I been arrogant? Because in that spur of the moment, nobody can act like a saint or sage, So in the night time, when we take some time for these things, all these things do come to our notice. So Krishnaji is giving a very good hint there. This kind of a taking a stock, maybe very rarely, very rare aspect you brought to the notice, because otherwise a lot of people get confused. Is he asking us to completely erase the memory? No, I don't think he's saying that. See, look at your own behavior, nature, and see where exactly you have gone wrong. And if possible, try to correct it, try to rectify it, or taking stock itself reveals so many things to us. So that's a very valuable point I feel, you brought to the attention today. And of course, you speak so much about attention. There are no, and like our previous speaker, Mr. Hareshwar has said, unless and until we understand the significance of it, why is he asking us to do so much? Maybe that question is also very important, And like, you touched upon the principle of escape. And when I came across this escape, it's a mind boggling, What is this escape? What does he mean by it? Why is he saying this way? What is he trying to indicate to us? That question also, if it is there with us, and if we remain with that question, maybe answers, the previous speakers also said, the answers are revealed to us, because the intensity, the non-verbal, silent inquiry, if it is there in us, why is he saying so? What is the significance behind it? If we start applying our mind to all those things, maybe, and remaining with them, maybe answers start revealing to us. So that's all I had to contribute, sir. And it's really indeed a very wonderful presentation, sir. Thank you so much.
Harshad Parekh, sir.
Yes. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Sushil ji. When we first time either read Krishna ji or listen to his talk, and we feel that, yes, what he says is really wonderful, as if Krishna ji is talking to us directly. And that is what happened to me. And I did not ask many questions. Krishna ji asked many questions in his book. And when I read in his book that he asked, why do you think of yourself as an Indian or a Hindu or a Chinese or American? And it really struck me. And I said, yes, because I was in America and I was thinking of myself as an Indian and Hindu and not able to relate well with people of many different nationalities and religion. And so then I began to read more carefully and begin to observe my own mind. And I found that what Krishnamurti was saying was really true. And he was saying that all our problems are coming from thinking. And from thinking comes this sense of I or me, and then we say I am an Indian and Hindu and all that. So the root of everything, all our psychological problems, is in the thinking. And when I read that, and when I tried to verify, to look at the beginning of a thought, my mind really stopped and there was nothing coming. And I said, yes, Krishna ji is correct. And so a new, what I became very deeply interested, reading a little bit of Krishnamurti, but looking and forgetting what Krishnamurti had said, and just looking at my own mind, how thoughts are arising. And it's wonderful. Our mind is changing continuously. And when we get interested in looking, generally, we are interested in watching a film, and we can watch for 2-3 hours a film made by somebody else. But there is a film video is going on within us. And when we get interested in looking at this video, when we have time, then we can learn directly about ourselves. And then we can say, yes, Krishnamurti is correct. So there is a direct way of looking and then reading a little bit of Krishnamurti and say, yes, Krishnamurti is correct. And that is the way I found. And I remember that when I was a child, I used to look at the rose flower and the dewdrop on the rose flower and the sunlight falling on it, and it is reflecting, and it looked very beautiful, the rose flower and the dewdrop. But then I studied engineering, went to America, many problems. So that way of looking, the way children look at everything, it was lost because there were many problems. Many unobserved thinking was going on. And so that way of looking without thinking, just observing, without this sense of I or me, it was lost. But after I became very curious to look at my own mind, and then that way of looking, it came back to me in spite of all the knowledge which I had gathered. And it helped me in many ways in relationship with people, in looking at the beauty of nature and so on. So there is something great about the teachings of Krishnamurti when it really strikes you at the deeper level. But I find that many people try to understand what Krishnamurti is saying, and then they don't understand. And then they ask questions, what Krishnamurti means by this. And then it creates a lot of conflict. Because if we are interested in looking at ourselves, then it is wonderful. But when we try to understand Krishnamurti and what he is saying, then it will create a lot of conflict. So that's why some people, they read Krishnamurti for many, many years. And they, at the end, after many, many years, they were asking the same question instead of looking within. So if Krishnamurti's teachings are making you or me to look deeper within us without bringing in the knowledge of Krishnamurti, then I think Krishnamurti has done his work. And then we don't even need Krishnamurti, and we can really look everything, what is happening within us. And it's wonderful to look. In that, there is no effort involved, and there is a direct learning. Okay, I have said enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Harshad sir. Pradeep Verma ji.
Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, audible, visible, both.
Both. Okay. Thank you very much, Shakti ji. Thank you, all the friends. The title today, beautiful title, a few theoretical aspects of J. Krishnamurti discourse. So two things came to me. Aspects means the views, different views and different aspects, or at least it's a fragmentation. A few makes it further. Then theory. He has emphasized on theory. I was expecting a few practical aspects of J. Krishnamurti. Of course, expectations are bad, I know that. Aspects of Krishnamurti discourse. Then I started what he thought about is theory. I'm quoting because I have listened to so many quotes. I'm quoting Krishnamurti. Theories are like dark window which prevent you from seeing the sun. And if you understand that, you never belong to anything. So interesting quote that way. To me, what matters is how have I received, although I had written how have we received the teachings of Krishnamurti, in what form they are in me, how do I receive words like theory, practical, etc. And how do I differentiate between these words in me? Of course, through their meaning. To me, mind is a very important instrument. Although we have been talking invariably about going beyond mind as if mind is the only conditioned mind. It's not. So, listening to Shakti ji, a number of questions came to me. First question is combination of skepticism and openness. Then mind and awareness, that is one question. Second question is when you are, then it was emphasized like this, when you are walking, walk. When you are eating, eat. Where it starts and where it is completed. Walking can be inclusive and exclusive both. If I am attending to how I am walking, where I am keeping my steps, I am likely to miss so many things because each sense draws to itself involuntarily in me, naturally. Then another question is, are we learning to watch through some other mind-body complex? What one sees is the most important regulator of one's activities. It reflects one's life completely, almost. How do I see? Why do I see? What I see? It includes even the illusion created by my wishful seeing. So seeing is the ultimate thing. And I'll just quote another very important share with 4 lines. All of us are functioning within the framework of the conceptual world, whether it is the idea of working for money or working for enlightenment. So this is a part of post-spirituality. It's not that people have not listened to Krishnamurti very with a lot of intent and action. People have definitely a number of people, that Eckhart Tolle, then Stephen Harrison, all these people have heard him very, and they have gone little ahead of what next? What next? And what is now? Even these questions have been raised, and very important questions. We always talk now is always there. And then we also talk, now is already, by the time you cognize it, now is already past. And so many things are there still. But we very taken for granted certain things like this, and that they keep on clogging our brain, the only thing. So thank you very much for giving me so much time. Thank you, friends. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pradeep ji. Anybody else wanted to comment, or Shakti ji,
Yes.
you want to say something? Because it is your turn now to say something. Shakti ji, may I request you to say something now?
Yes, sir.
Please.
This Pradeep ji talked about the combination of skepticism and openness. You see, if I believe, if I make a belief system that the ego is the root cause of all problems in one's own life and the life outside the world, and if it is eliminated, everything is different. If I make it a belief system, then it is same like believing in God or believing in some holy book. There is no difference. So the skepticism is very important for me to study anything. You know, in Gita, around the end of it, Krishna invites Arjuna to say, to ponder over it. Etad vimrishya asheshena. Don't leave anything. Ponder over the whole thing, and then yathechasi tatha kuru. Do as you wish to do. So that is skepticism, that is doubt, which is a healer, and which is, which doesn't allow us to go into some sort of imagination and, the fantasy of different kinds. Openness is necessary, as Krishna ji used to say, that doubt, a dog on a leash. So that openness is that I'm not rejecting something. Krishna ji talks about the sacred. I'm not rejecting it. I'm receiving it. And I see that in my life, this is something I cannot test out, you see. So there has to be openness. Openness is not rejecting. And there has to be doubt also. Then perhaps we can experiment with something without wanting something in return, as Krishnamurti sometimes used to say, just for the fun of it. Thank you, sir. Dinesh ji is trying to say something.
Dinesh Waghmare, please unmute.
Yes, sir. Are you able to listen to me?
Yeah, everybody is able to listen.
In today's message from Shakti ji, 3 points are actually arised. One point is attention in attention issue. Another is this stock of things. And third is joy and pleasure versus pain and escape. So my understanding is why we want attention basically. Because we are not getting any freedom. In young age, or when we are child, we do not ask for any such thing. Why do we ask? Because we don't feel any freedom. So, and why we are not getting freedom? Because my memory is full of thoughts and I am getting a lot of traffic of thoughts. So basically, as Professor Krishna pointed out, if there is interest, despite of thoughts, I will give the attention. Whether then there is no question of inattention. Moreover, if I am having a sensitivity, still I will give the attention. So in my opinion, or in my views rather, right word is views. Basically, this is a subjective matter. If I am interested in nature, I will go for the nature seeing and all that. If I am not interested, I am interested in movie, I will go for movie, but there also I will have a holistic view. Who is director, how he is directed, and I will go into a lot of intricacies and all that. So basically, interest also comes into the picture and sensitivity also comes into the picture. But basic issue, what we were discussing is, since my memory is full, a lot of thought traffic is there. That's why I'm losing the initial capacity of my freedom. And if somehow the thoughts ends, or if I am free of the past memories, then this becomes automatic. Of course, it is subjective, but it will become automatic to me. This is my experiences. Again, next point, stock of things. That is also the same. What is the intention behind taking the stock of things? This is simple analysis which we do in our normal worldly affairs and this thing. Why do we take the stock of things? So that we are clear about the things and we are free from that thing. Say for example, any material stock or this thing, why we take? As soon as we take the stock of things, we are free from it and we go for the other issue. So stock of things is an intellectual affair and this is directly an analysis process. So that is first process that is to be done. Another is getting free from the memory after this choiceless awareness, using the choiceless awareness, or basically understanding that earlier we were having the ignorance. We were not aware that how mind was processing, how the mind works. And earlier we were having this, we do not see the cost and consequences or pros and cons of this memory, having more loaded memory. So if we are having that wisdom, then I think this attention and inattention issue can be sorted out to some extent. Again, this joy and pleasure versus pain and escape. This also is similar. If I am having the wisdom, I will automatically understand what is the cost and consequences of escape, pros and cons of escape, and I will go for this. I will not go for the escape. I will try to remain with the pain, caused pain, and then I will try to remain, as soon as I remain with the pain, there will be the different action as Krishnamurti suggests. And it happens. Normally, in my experience, it happens. So basic point is wisdom. If you get this wisdom, then all these your issues can be tackled, whether it is of interest, whether it is of sensitivity, whether it is of attention and attention, whether the issue is of stock, or whether joy or pleasure versus the pain. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dinesh Waghmare. Shakti ji, Dr. Rao wanted you on screen again. What he has written, I have forwarded to you. So thank you very much, Shakti ji, for this beautiful program. Thanks to all. Modak, would you please end it now?
Yes.